This submission explores the strategic necessity of moving from fragmented, localized tax compliance tools to a unified, centralized compliance by design architecture.
Yeah, the material makes a highly compelling case for that framework, but there are specific areas where the argument's persuasive power can be sharpened.
Exactly, so let's get right into the feedback.
The material brilliantly identifies the trap of local, piecemeal compliance, but it currently overlooks the very real operational pressures that force organizations into that exact trap.
Right. I mean, as I understand it from the notes, the whole argument here is that tackling compliance locally is a trap.
Yes, it is.
But I have to ask, isn't there a risk that focusing solely on this, global architectural ideal kind of overlooks the messy business pressures that force organizations into that trap in the first place?
Oh, absolutely. When we read this section describing the wrong starting point, the weakness is that the text asserts organizations fail simply because they ask how to comply in a specific country or which vendor to use.
And it's just a lack of foresight.
Exactly. The phrasing almost frames it as a simple lack of strategic vision. It implies that these massive global enterprises are just, being lazy or short-sighted with their system architecture.
Yeah, which is completely disconnected from reality.
It really is. It totally dismisses the operational chaos these teams are surviving on a daily basis. In the real world, a company doesn't usually choose a local, piecemeal vendor because they lack vision.
Right.
They do it because they are hit with a sudden, aggressive regulatory mandate.
Look, imagine a new real-time reporting law passing in a critical European market.
Or Latin America, yeah.
And the local tax authority dictates this brutal, say, 90-day implementation window.
Right, exactly. And on top of that, you have companies dealing with deeply fragmented legacy systems.
Oh, for sure. If an enterprise just acquired 3 different competitors over the last 5 years, they might have instances of SAP, Oracle, and some, homegrown system all colliding.
Yeah, it's a mess. So if a stressed executive reads this text and feels like the author is scolding them for making the wrong choice while their house is actively burning down,
they are going to tune out immediately.
Exactly. So my suggestion here is to actively validate the reader's operational pain by acknowledging the reactive nature of current tax compliance environments.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then position the multi-layered architecture not just as a better theoretical question, but as a tactical mechanism to actually break the cycle of constant regulatory panic.
So we have to show the reader that we know what their Tuesday afternoon actually looks like before we try to sell them this massive 10-year vision.
Precisely.
So if I'm brainstorming a draft for this, I'm putting a scenario right at the top of that section to prove I know the trenches. What are some concrete examples of how to weave that reality into the text?
Well, a highly effective concrete approach would be to insert a brief, relatable scenario right there in the wrong starting point section.
Okay.
Describe a CFO who is absolutely forced to buy a local bolted-on vendor because a new market mandated e-invoicing virtually overnight.
Yeah, paint that picture.
Right. Show that the local team is panicking and the core ERP team says a native system update would take 18 months and freeze all other IT projects.
Wow, yeah, 18 months is a lifetime in that scenario.
It is. Show that making the wrong piecemeal choice is often the only survival choice available in a legacy setup.
And then I guess we have to immediately show how the new architecture mechanically solves that specific nightmare.
Exactly.
Like if the core ERP takes 18 months to update, we need to explain how the compliance and connectivity layer sits entirely outside that monolithic ERP.
Right, it intercepts the data flow.
So if a sudden mandate hits in country X, the unified architecture simply requires a new connectivity plugin or API routing rule at that external layer.
Instead of spinning up a panicked vendor integration that touches the core ERP code.
Yeah, that is a crucial pivot. You show the visceral pain of the 90-day deadline, and then you show the specific architectural mechanism that neutralizes that pain.
And we want the author to remember that these are just a couple of illustrative options for injecting operational empathy into the framing.
Sure, there are plenty of ways to do it.
Right. The core objective is simply to make the problem feel as grounded and real as the solution.
Well, that's a great setup. But, solving that localized 90-day panic isn't just about surviving today's mandate.
No, it's not.
It is the literal, mechanical prerequisite for what this author wants to do tomorrow. I mean, you cannot run the autonomous AI agents described later in the piece on a panicked patchwork vendor system.
No, definitely not. Which brings us to the second point. The introduction of the Internet of Agents is a fascinating and ambitious leap, but the causal link between the proposed five-layer architecture and these autonomous systems currently feels unearned.
Yeah. The narrative moves incredibly fast there.
It really does. We jump from the highly structured optimization layer straight into futuristic concepts like autonomous compliance and self-healing systems.
Okay, so what I really like about this part is the five-layer structure.
Yeah, it's strong.
It feels like building a highly functional factory. You know, the ERP is the raw material warehouse, and the data orchestration layer is the assembly line.
Right.
But when I read the jump from that data orchestration directly to an Internet of Agents running the factory autonomously, I genuinely got whiplash.
Yeah, it feels like we skipped 5 years of technological evolution in a single paragraph.
Exactly. So the weakness here is that the connection between the baseline architecture and these autonomous agents isn't fully established.
Right. It absolutely needs to be bolstered. The text fails to explain the fundamental why of the technology.
The why, right?
Why is the standardized machine-readable data generated from the data orchestration layer the strict, non-negotiable requirement for these AI agents to function at all?
Because right now, the AI section just feels like a trendy, bolted-on afterthought.
It reads as if the author felt an obligation to mention AI, rather than presenting autonomous agents as the ultimate logical payoff of the one data, one flow framework that the whole piece has been meticulously building toward.
Exactly. If you feed an AI the raw, jagged proprietary data from a dozen different localized vendors, some using SAP mapping, some using Oracle, some using custom legacy tags.
The AI isn't going to give you self-healing compliance.
No, it's going to hallucinate tax errors at lightning speed.
Right. If the orchestration layer is the assembly line, the AI agents aren't just the workers. They are the foremen who need the parts to come down the belt in the exact same standardized shape every single time.
And if the raw material is chaotic, the entire automated system breaks down.
Building on that point, my suggestion is to explicitly connect the foundational architecture to the future AI capabilities by arguing that AI and autonomous agents simply cannot function on raw, fragmented, or siloed ERP outputs.
Okay, so making it a hard rule.
Yes, we need the text to state unequivocally that these advanced technologies require the single version of truth created exclusively by the orchestration layer to exist at all.
So you have to earn the AI leap by proving that this architecture is the only way to unlock it.
Exactly. That framing turns the architecture from a theoretical nice-to-have into the literal price of admission for the future of enterprise technology.
I really like that framing. How do we apply this practically to the bullet points the author has already drafted? Can you give some concrete examples?
Sure. We can ground this with a concrete revision to the autonomous compliance section.
Okay.
Instead of vaguely stating that an AI agent can detect anomalies, revise the bullet point to explicitly reference the architecture's translation mechanism.
Got it.
Explain that the agent can only detect anomalies because the data orchestration layer has already stripped away the proprietary formatting from diverse ERP systems.
Oh, so it translates that data into a single standardized dialect that the agent can actually read without hallucinating?
Precisely. We are shifting the focus from the magic of the AI to the rigorous mechanics of the data standardization.
That makes it so much more credible.
And to really cement that, a second concrete approach would be to describe the orchestration layer using a metaphor that implies future intelligence.
Like what?
Frame the five-layer architecture as the nervous system or the training ground that makes the Internet of Agents possible.
Oh, I like training ground.
Yeah. Show the reader that trying to skip this architectural phase and simply buy an off-the-shelf AI tax tool in 3 years will result in catastrophic failure.
Because the AI is only as smart as the data layer beneath it.
Exactly. And again, well, these are just a few ways to draw that causal line. The primary goal is to anchor the futuristic promises firmly to the structural realities we established in the first half of the piece.
Yeah, that connects everything beautifully. So, we have the cure for the immediate operational fires, right?
Right.
And we have built the required foundation for the AI-driven future.
Yes, we have.
But none of this matters if the people writing the checks don't approve the multi-million-dollar budget.
The hardest part?
Exactly. And that brings us to the final hurdle, how this material actually sells the ultimate vision to the decision makers.
Let's look closely at the section discussing the impact on CFOs and CIOs. The section detailing the architectural impact on CFOs and CIOs relies on generic corporate benefits rather than highlighting the specific transformative advantages unique to this exact compliance model.
Yeah, reading through the draft, I noticed it maps out the benefits clearly. But I wonder, are these takeaways punchy enough?
They really aren't.
Is there a risk that relying on phrases like scalable architecture and real-time visibility might just blend in with every other enterprise software pitch out there?
That is the exact weakness here. We are seeing a significant rhetorical softening right at the climax of the pitch.
Right.
Promising real-time visibility, faster decision-making, and reduced integration complexity is factually accurate, but rhetorically it is hollow.
It sounds like the marketing brochure for literally any piece of B2B software released in the last decade.
Yes.
I mean, a new communication tool promises faster decision-making.
A minor HR software update promises reduced integration complexity.
Exactly. If you're asking a CFO and a CIO to completely re-architect their global financial systems, a project that fundamentally touches the beating heart of their revenue stream, you cannot promise them the exact same generic benefits they could get from a minor application upgrade.
That is the crux of the issue. Because the benefits lack the specific bite of the real-time tax context, the material fails to provoke the necessary mindset shift the author calls for in the subsequent summary.
You have to give the C-suite a high-stakes specific victory.
Right. So my suggestion is to elevate these executive takeaways by tying them directly back to the unique mechanisms of the one control layer and intelligence layer.
Okay.
Translating the shift from mere risk mitigation into a definitive, hard-hitting strategic advantage for both the finance and technology roles.
Because the material makes a strong case for compliance as a capability earlier on.
Yes, it does.
So we need to move from what the architecture is to how the architecture makes the C-suite look like visionaries.
Exactly. Let's break down the mechanics of how to rewrite these bullet points, starting with the CFO.
Okay, what's a concrete way to improve that section?
For the CFO, a concrete example would be to upgrade faster decision-making to a mechanism highly specific to the real-time tax environment.
Like what?
For example, instead of a generic bullet, write something like the ability to run real-time cash flow optimization models across dozens of borders without waiting for end-of-month reconciliation.
Oh, wow. That is a massive financial win that only a unified, real-time architecture can provide.
Exactly.
Let's explore why that is such a massive win. Historically, why does end-of-month reconciliation take so long?
Because tax data is trapped in local silos.
Right. The localized vendors the author criticized in the first section take up to 30 days to consolidate and report the data back to the central finance team.
And during that blind spot, capital is trapped.
Exactly. But by utilizing the one data stream, the CFO suddenly has continuous visibility into global liquidity.
That isn't just faster decision-making.
No, that is the ability to free up millions in working capital on a Tuesday instead of waiting until the 15th of the following month.
It completely changes the game for them.
It really does. So what about the CIO's perspective?
Well, we need to apply that same level of operational specificity to the technology leader.
Okay.
For the CIO, replace a generic phrase like standardized data models with a concrete operational triumph.
Give me an example.
A great example would be decoupling business operations from compliance risk, meaning a core ERP upgrade will never again be derailed by a country-specific tax logic mandate.
Oh, that speaks directly to a CIO's deepest nightmare.
Having a global infrastructure transformation held hostage by a local regulatory quirk.
Right, because if tax logic is hard-coded into the monolithic core ERP, every time a country changes a tax rate, the CIO has to open up the core code.
Test it globally and risk breaking the supply chain.
Yes, but this unified architecture extracts the tax logic into a separate external layer.
Exactly. You are essentially giving the CIO permission to upgrade their ERP on their own schedule, entirely decoupled from the chaos of global tax authorities.
You're giving them their timeline back.
Precisely. And again, just to reiterate, these are just a few ways to transform generic software buzzwords into tailored, high-stakes value propositions.
The key takeaway for the author is to make the C-suite benefits so specific to the mechanisms of this tax architecture that no other enterprise vendor could possibly claim them.
Yes, that transforms the conclusion from a gentle summary into a sharp, undeniable business case.
It really does. So let's briefly recap the three main takeaways from our critique today.
Sounds good.
First, we need to ground the wrong starting point and the chaotic reality of business pressures.
Right. We must validate the reader's operational pain.
Exactly. Showing that we intimately understand the panic of 90-day mandates and legacy tech debt before we introduce the cure.
And second?
Second, we must explicitly link the one data foundation to the viability of the AI and agent future.
Yes, the jump to autonomous systems needs to feel earned.
Proving mechanically that AI simply cannot exist without the rigorous data standardization this architecture provides.
Right.
And third, we need to sharpen the CFO and CIO benefits to reflect specific, high-stakes architectural wins.
Like cross-border cash flow optimization and ERP decoupling.
Exactly, rather than falling back on generic software buzzwords.
I highly encourage the listener to apply these structural adjustments. The foundational logic of this piece is remarkably strong, and the architectural vision is exactly what the industry needs right now.
It really is.
By executing these revisions, you ensure the piece doesn't just present a brilliant theoretical framework, but actively persuades a stressed, real-world executive to adopt it, fund it, and champion it within their organization.
We would love to see how this material evolves. Please implement these high-level revisions and submit your updated draft back to the critique for another look.
Yeah, we genuinely enjoy seeing these strategic concepts reach their full persuasive potential.
Keep refining the core message, focus on the operational realities of your audience, and we'll catch you next time.